So we just implied that there was a revolution in human behavior maybe around 40 to 50,000 years ago. Maybe that evolved in many places at the same time. But there is a paper that argues, based again on interpreting the evidences of tools, that maybe that is a Eurocentric view. So if you take a more African Eurasian view, the evolution probably evolved, at the time that anatomically modern humans evolved, around 100,000 years or older, and not really so much later, at 40 to 50,000 years, because it's a conundrum to explain why sudden revolution happened in different climates, even though anatomically modern humans evolved much before. So this, just to run through, this is from a UK site, so it's a bit UK centric in terms of defining the Stone Ages. So lower Paleolithic and middle Paleolithic going to 800,000 years, and towards the modern times, down into 400,000 to 100,000 years. So there were several cold stages in Britain from 800 kiloyear to 12 kiloyear, 12 kiloyear being, of course, when the last ice age ended, and Britain was periodically an island for 400 to 100 kiloyears. So it was sea level change made it a continuous part of the European continent, or sea level rise made it a separate island. So there are various evidences along the way. This is the reference here, and we have the various species like Homo heidelbergensis hunted and butchered horses and rhinos at Boxgrove in Sussex 500,000 years ago. Neanderthals at 400 kiloyears. Neanderthals created the first hearth in Britain at Beech's Pit in Suffolk in 400 kiloyears, and may have hunted elephants at Swanscombe in Kent, and so on. So I won't read all of these things, but there are key evidences along the way. If you come to the Upper Paleolithic, more recent times, Britain was joined to Europe throughout this period. The land bridge between the two is often called Doggerland, after the Dogger Banks under the North Sea. So Neanderthals lived in Creswell Crags, Derbyshire, and La Cote de Saint-Brelade on Jersey around 50 kiloyears. I butchered that name for sure. First evidence of modern humans, Homo sapiens, in Britain, a jawbone found in Kemp's Cavern in Devon, dating to 40 kiloyears. So that's where the time of European arrival and modern revolution in modern behavior is usually inferred. You can come to 10 kiloyears, for example, jumping a few steps here. There was a cold period around 20 kiloyear when the last glacial maximum was being reached, and you have human remains found in Gough's Cave in Cheddar Gorge, date to 15 kiloyear. They may have been eaten by other humans, so some evidence of cannibalism there. An engraving of a horse on bone was found in Creswell Crags, dating to 14 kiloyears. Decorated horse jaw found in Kendrick's Cave from 10 kiloyears. And then you have, of course, this is a bit reversed, but sorry. No, it's okay. So Mesolithic coming into Neolithic, Bronze Age, and Iron Age. So we are already out of the last glacial, 10 kiloyear to 8,000 BC. Britain was finally an island around 8 kiloyears ago. Various evidences there of human activities. So farming reaches Central Europe by about 7.7 kiloyears, 5700 BC. 6 kiloyears to 4,000 kiloyears. Farming, my computer has this bug that is bugging the hell out of me. Farming was introduced to Britain around 6 kiloyears, 4000 BC. This included domesticated wheat, barley, sheep, and cattle, and so on. And we have the Bronze Age and the Iron Age by AD 43. The Iron Age in Britain begins around 2.8 kiloyears or 800 BC. The second Roman invasion of Britain in AD 43 is usually used as the end of Iron Age and prehistory in Britain. More details about Bronze Age and Iron Age, but let me jump to the revolution that wasn't. This paper says a new interpretation of the origin of modern human behavior is basically a way to show that there really wasn't a behavioral evolution around 40 to 50 kiloyear. So proponents of the model known as the human revolution claim that modern human behaviors arose suddenly and nearly simultaneously throughout the old world circa 40 to 50 kiloyears. This fundamental behavioral shift is purported to signal a cognitive advance, a possible reorganization of the brain, and the origin of language. Because the earliest modern human fossils, Homo sapiens sensu stricto, so really behaviorally, anatomically, and brain size wise, are found in Africa and the adjacent region of the Levant at more than 100,000 years ago, the human revolution model creates a time lag between the appearance of anatomical modernity and perceived behavioral modernity. Throughout this chapter, we keep saying that modern behavior is not very well defined, and this creates the impression that the earliest modern Africans were behaviorally primitive. This view of events stems from a profound Eurocentric bias and a failure to appreciate the depth and breadth of the African archaeological record. In fact, many of the components of the human revolution claimed to appear at 40 to 50 kiloyear are found in the African Middle Stone Age tens of thousands of years earlier. So that's the Mesolithic that I was showing. These features include blade and microlithic technology, bone tools, increased geographic range, specialized hunting, the use of aquatic resources, long-distance trade, systematic processing, and use of pigment and art and decoration. Okay, so the paper basically looks at various evidences across Africa, much older than the European dates, using the pointer here. These items do not, so jumping to the end, to the conclusion, these items do not occur suddenly together as predicted by the human revolution model, but at sites that are widely separated in space and time. This suggests a gradual assembling of the package of modern human behaviors in Africa and its later export to other regions of the Old World. The African Middle and early late Pleistocene hominid fossil record is fairly continuous, and in it can be recognized a number of probably distinct species that provide plausible ancestors of Homo sapiens. The appearance of Middle Stone Age technology and the first sign of modern behavior coincide with the appearance of fossils that have been attributed to Homo helmei, suggesting the behavior of Homo helmei is distinct from that of earlier hominid species and quite similar to that of modern people. If on anatomical and behavioral grounds Homo helmei is sunk into Homo sapiens, the origin of our species is linked with the appearance of Middle Stone Age technology at 250 to 300 kiloyears. So that's taking the timelines back quite a bit. What are the archaeological signatures of modern human behavior? Ecologically, you have range extension to previously unoccupied regions like tropical lowland forests, islands, the far north in Europe and Asia, increased diet breadth, which is again often related to brain size growth and cognitive abilities, and so on, brain complexification. Technologies include new lithic technologies, standardization within formal tool categories, hafting and composite tools, tools in novel materials like bone and antlers, special purpose tools, increased number of tool categories, geographic variation in formal categories, temporal variation in formal categories, and greater control of fire. Economy and social organization are also associated with modern human behavior. Long-distance procurement and exchange of raw material, curation of exotic raw materials. We have seen these exchanges in other places as well, which shows that there were distinct communities living across Africa that were potentially had a social network of exchanging and procuring things. Specialized hunting of large dangerous animals, scheduling and seasonality in resource exploitation, so awareness about weather and climate, migrations of megafauna and so on, site reoccupation, intensification of resource extraction, especially aquatic and vegetable resources. So when we go to chapter 7, looking at human interactions with the environment, we will see how marine resources were exploited along the way, in addition to all the land resources. Long distance exchange networks, group and individual self-identification through artifact style, structured use of domestic space. Symbolic behaviors which are critical of explaining modern behavior included regional artifact styles, self-adornment, example beads and ornaments. So this could indicate ways to attract partners or showing wealth, culture, symbols, etc. Use of pigment, especially derived from some marine species. Notched and incised objects, bone, eggshell, ochre, stone, etc. Image and representation. Burials with grave goods, ochre, ritual objects, and so on. So here is a map of distribution of point styles in the African Middle Stone Age. You can see here various tools at various locations. These are Middle Stone Age 1 to 4. I won't go into the details, but basically it tells you that there were Middle Stone Age tool technologies and maybe potentially similarities that indicate social networks and communication that we already implied, and we will look at it in another podcast as well. So it's quite possible that the evolution of modern behavior happened much before the so-called European behavioral revolution. Finally, behavioral innovations of the Middle Stone Age in Africa, as a summary, and their time depths in Africa. You can see here the time going back in time in kilo years, 280,000. So blades stretch all the way back, grindstones, pigment processing, points, and here there is brush shown with paint. Shell fishing, so use of marine resources. Long distance exchange, social networks, procurements and trading, etc. Fishing, bone tools, barbed points, so you are track the timing here much before the 40 to 50 kilo year time scale we are talking about in terms of a European revolution model. Mining, notational pieces incised, so expertise, mass production, etc. Microliths, beads and images. Okay, so this is just a quick take on how interpretations that are published widely in terms of what is modern behavior and when it evolved, where it evolved, probably need to get away from the Eurocentric view. We have looked at one Asian-centric view. Now we are looking at a more wider African view to make sure that the timelines of the evolution of behavior can be better understood. There is even a recent paper talking about experiments with orangutans, and they are capable of making primitive tools as well. So that may stretch the timeline of tool technology even to older Stone Age times, but whether humans learned from them or we evolved with the knowledge about stone tools and so on is not completely clear. But let's just stick to the modern behavior here, since we are trying to come closer to the Homo sapiens. But also the impact of climate on these things is kind of implicit in terms of what resources were available and what they were hunting in cooperation, big dangerous animals, for example, as opposed to smaller animals, and marine resources as opposed to just land resources, which we will see in chapter 7 could be related to ice ages, changes in sea level, and processes of invasion and creation of features like refugia and various freshwater systems which could make it possible to reach marine resources and so on. Okay, let's conclude then with a few words from the book which are worth reading in this context of whether the behavioral revolution happened, or there was a more gradual evolution that is missed by taking a Eurocentric view. The last part of the book, the paper, says the human revolution is a semantic as well as a romantic issue, and our conundrum stems from the use of the loaded term modern to describe the behavior of people prior to the 16th century, let alone those of the Pleistocene. So people have used various timelines to divide modern versus prehistoric behavior or non-modern behavior. Our lists of modern behaviors are derived from populations living today or those alive in the relatively recent past, who all are or were products of the evolution and history. Past human populations were products of different histories, and the qualities stressed in our lists of modern behavior may have had little relevance for our ancestors. Okay, so if we then give up the idea that there was a revolution and accept that anatomically modern humans and modern behavior evolved in Africa, this view also changes and it challenges the Africanist archaeologists to evaluate the African evidence on its own terms. Rather than applying arbitrary criteria for the position modernity, one could take the position that rather arbitrary criteria for modernity, this position shouldn't be here. One could take the position that behavioral innovation drove the morphological changes that are observed in early modern human anatomy. When we realize that the modern human adaptation appeared gradually rather than suddenly, the process can be broken into its constituent parts, each having its own origin and demanding its own explanation. It's necessary to establish the nature of the changes, the order of the changes, and the pace of changes in order to discover the causes. This presents us with a fresh opportunity to expand our understanding of the range of behaviors practiced by members of our own species. So essentially there is still a debate about what is modern behavior, when it evolved, where it evolved, and whether it was really a revolution or gradual. Okay, so again it comes down to interpreting fossil evidences which keep growing because new fossils are found. So hopefully this gap of where modern human behavior evolved and how gradually or how rapidly evolved and how it interacted with morphological changes, developmental changes, also will be clarified along the way. If I find any new material, obviously I'll be recording and posting podcasts in this place to change the views. Okay.